Now that we have a background for where Android has come from and where it's heading, let's talk about what's new in Android M, the latest version of Google's mobile operating system. Android M is the working title of a new release of the Android mobile operating system. First unveiled at Google I/O on May 28, 2015, on August 17, 2015, Google revealed that the M stands for Marshmallow and has officially named Android M Android 6.0 Marshmallow. Android M will primarily focus on incremental improvements and other feature additions like runtime permissions, DOS, app standby, power saving features, etc. Compared to others, Google uses far more taste in naming the different versions of its mobile operating system. Each version is named after a tasty sweet. It started with Android 1.5 Cupcake, Android 1.6 Donut, Eclair, Froyo, Gingerbread, and so on up to Android 5.0 Lollipop. It is the current version available in the market. Android M, or Marshmallow as it is known, is the next version of Android that will be released in the fourth quarter of 2015. So what's new in Android M? About 14 new items which are a combination of brand new features and improvements to existing ones. These are app permissions, web experience, fingerprint support, mobile payments, app links, power and charging, auto backup and restore, new app drawer, Android M RAM manager, adoptable storage devices, a new dark theme, Google Now, Google Chrome, and Google Photos. We're going to go into detail on each of these so you're well aware of what's new and how that will benefit your Android development efforts. The Android M Developer Preview introduces a new app permissions model which provides a much more flexible, fine-grained security approach when users are installing or upgrading apps. If an app running on the M Preview supports the new permissions model, the user does not have to grant any permissions when they install or upgrade the app. That was the old one-size-fits-all permissions model. Now the app only asks for permissions when it needs them, which is much better for the user. The image here for a sample app shows the existing permissions model. On installation, the app is requesting blanket access to everything it needs right up front. The user is allowing the app to dial phone numbers, take pictures and videos, get approximate location, precise GPS locations, and read the contents of the USB storage. The user must grant all of these permissions during installation. But in Android M, we can enable the user to grant permission at runtime when they're needed. This gives the user much more control at the right time over what an app can and can't do. It will still require certain basic permissions during installation, but all of the rest are only requested and approved at runtime when they're needed. Here are the key components of this new model. Declaring permissions. The app declares all the permissions it needs in the manifest as in earlier Android platforms. Permission groups. Permissions are divided into permission groups based on their functionality. For example, the Contacts permission group contains permissions to read and write the user's contacts and profile information. Related permissions are divided into permission groups to allow users to grant related permissions to an app in a single action. The user only has to grant permission once per app for each permission group. If the app subsequently requests a permission from the same permission group, the system automatically grants the permission without any action from the user. The best way to illustrate this new permissions group model is to give an example. Suppose an app lists in its manifest that it needs the send SMS and receive SMS permissions, which both belong to android.permission-group.sms. When the app needs to send a message, it requests the send SMS permission. The system shows the user a dialog box asking if the app can have access to SMS. If the user agrees, the system grants the app the send SMS permission it requested. Later, the app requests receive SMS. The system automatically grants this permission since the user has already approved a permission in the same permission group. Even though permissions are granted by the user at runtime, they're still required during installation. In this case, limited permissions can be granted during installation. When the user installs or updates the app, the system grants the app all permissions listed in the manifest that fall under Protection Normal. For example, alarm clock and internet permissions fall under Protection Normal, so they are automatically granted at install time. The new feature in Android M is that you can specify that the user grants permission at runtime. When the app requests a permission, the system shows a dialog to the user, then calls the app's callback function to notify it when the user granted the permission. Since the permission model changes the way your app behaves for features that require permissions, there are certain development practices you should follow to adjust to this model. Here they are. Always check for permissions. When the app needs to perform any action that requires a permission, it should first check whether it has the permission already. If it does not, it requests the user to grant that permission. You do not need to check for permissions that fall under protection normal. Handle a lack of permissions gracefully. If the app has not granted an appropriate permission, it should handle the failure cleanly. For example, if the permission is just needed for an added feature, the app can disable that feature. If the permission is essential for the app to function, the app might disable all its functionality and inform the user that they need to grant that permission. Figure 1. Permission screen in the app settings. Permissions are revocable. Users can revoke an app's permission at any time. If a user turns off an app's permission, the app is not notified. Once again, your app should verify that it has the needed permissions before performing any restricted actions. Here is something obvious but important to note. If an app targets the Android M developer preview, it must use the new permissions model. When the app attempts to perform an operation that requires that permission, the operation will not necessarily cause an exemption. Instead, it might return an empty data set, signal an error, or otherwise exhibit unexpected behavior. For example, if you query a calendar without permission, the method will return an empty data set, so it is important that you code your app to the new permissions model. Chrome Custom Tabs is a new feature that gives developers a way to harness all of Chrome's capabilities while still keeping control of the look and feel of the app experience. Chrome Custom Tabs will allow apps to open a customized Chrome window on top of the active app instead of launching the Chrome app separately. This will provide a faster and more intuitive user experience when navigating between apps and the web. Chrome Custom Tabs support automatic sign-in, saved passwords, autofill, and multi-process security to assist the integration of the app and web experience. Google will standardize support for fingerprint scanners on phones running Android M. The new functionality will allow fingerprint scanners to be used not only to unlock phones, but to help facilitate retail point of sale or online Play Store purchases. Your device will need a hardware fingerprint scanner for this to work, but with Google's full support, you can expect to see these appear on many more devices in the near future. Android Pay is Google's new mobile payment system designed to make the checkout process easier and faster. It is Google's response to Apple Pay. Google is aiming to provide simplicity, security, and choice with Android Pay by allowing you to use your existing credit cards to pay for products in more than 700,000 stores in the US. Android Pay is compatible with any device with near-field communication or NFC capabilities, running 4.4 KitKat or above. NFC is the set of protocols that enable smartphones and other devices to establish radio communication with each other by touching the devices together or bringing them into proximity to a distance of typically 10 centimeters or less. The Android Pay platform is supported by American Express, Visa, MasterCard, as well as carriers such as AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. AppLinks is a new feature in Android M that solves an existing problem in Android. Typically, when a user selects a web link, Android doesn't know whether to show it in a web browser or in another app that claims support for the link. AppLinks solves this. You may be familiar with the Open With dialog box, which appears when you try to open a link from within an app in Android. You may be asked if you want to open the link with YouTube or Chrome. With the new app links, the operating system can automatically determine the default app used to handle a particular web link and eliminate need to ask the user. We've put a simple link here to show how Android M handles the app link feature. If the user taps on a Twitter link in an email, the Twitter app will open automatically instead of prompting them whether or not they want to use Twitter to view it. So, we can summarize the new functionality provided by AppLinks. Android has a greater awareness of which apps can open content directly and eliminates the need for user interaction. It improves upon existing link handling by allowing app developers to associate an app with a web domain they own. When developers create this association, the platform can automatically determine the default app used to handle the web link and eliminate the need for user interaction. Android M makes use of a new function known as doze to improve device standby time. By using motion detectors, Android will recognize when devices haven't been interacted with for a while, such as when a person is asleep or a device has been left on a table, to reduce background processing. Google tested two Nexus 9 devices, one running Lollipop and one running the Marshmallow preview, and found that Marshmallow will provide twice as much standby time. While in doze mode, it can still start alarms and notify you of priority notifications. It also supports USB Type-C, which provides faster charging and lets users charge other devices with their phone. We've talked about 6 new features in Google's newest mobile operating system release. What else is new in Android M? Auto backup and restore for apps, new app drawer, Android M RAM manager, adoptable storage devices, Google Now, Google Chrome, and Google Photos. We're going to discuss each of these briefly so you can be right up to speed. Auto backup and restore for apps. This is possibly the most interesting aspect of Android M that was not discussed in Google's I/O keynote speech. This feature will be used in conjunction with Google Drive to automatically back up app data and settings with file sizes of 25 megabytes or less. These backups occur no more than once per day and run only when the device is idle and connected to Wi-Fi and power. The uploaded data does not count towards a user's Google Drive storage quota, and it is fully encrypted. If they lose their device or delete the app, their previous progress will be restored the next time they install it. New app drawer. This is one of the most immediately recognizable visual changes to Android M. The app screen now scrolls vertically instead of horizontally. A user will now see their 4 most recently used apps across the top of the menu. Android M RAM Manager. Google has introduced a new RAM Manager to Android M with the aim of providing users with more accurate and comprehensible information regarding the maximum and average RAM usage of apps. With a reading of an individual app's RAM consumption, as well as how often it is running in the background, users will be able to better determine which apps should be removed in an ongoing effort to increase device performance and battery life. Adoptable storage devices. Adoptable storage devices is Google's new storage feature, which essentially takes an external storage source, such as an SD card or a USB drive, and formats it like an internal storage source. This means that app and personal data can be moved freely between a device's native internal source and its adopted storage. Google Now. Google Now has been improved yet again in Android M with a focus on 3 key areas: being aware of different contexts, providing answers, and helping you take action. Google Now is now smarter than ever. Google Now's context awareness understands over 100 million different places, so when you ask, how far is it to there, Google Now knows exactly which there you're referring to. This awareness is compounded by Google's Knowledge Graph, which understands 1 billion different entities, from sports teams to gas stations, TV shows to recipes. Google Now is also rolling out a pilot program called Now on Tap with 100 popular apps. Now on Tap provides Google Now-like contact right where you are without having to leave the app you're in. So if you're in Spotify and say, "Okay Google, what is his real name?" Now on Tap will know you're talking about the musician you're listening to and provide search results right there and then. The same goes for content and emails. If someone asks you a question about a restaurant and not to forget something on your way home, Now on Tap can automatically pop up a restaurant card with Maps info, Yelp, OpenTable, and the dialer, as well as offer to set a reminder for whatever it was you were supposed to not forget. Google Chrome. Chrome is now leaner and faster than ever before. Initially revamped with Android One devices in mind, where stable and speedy internet connections are not always possible, Chrome's new optimizations are set to arrive for everyone. Chrome is now aware of network strength and can modify what you see as a result. For example, if your connection is bad, you might see colored squares rather than preview images in search results. Optimized web pages will load 4 times faster and use 80% fewer bytes. You'll also see a memory usage reduction of up to 80 megabytes. Chrome will also support offline mode. Google Photos. Google Photos is now a standalone photo and video storage and sharing service that provides unlimited free storage for up to 16 megapixel photos and 1080p video. This is very impressive. The Google Photos service stores high quality compressed versions of your photos and movies but doesn't store anything on your device, so you can search through thousands of photos at high speed and without bogging your device down with gigabytes of photos. Popular features like Auto Awesome and Stories are a key highlight, accessible through a new assistant feature which will automatically suggest creative usage for your images and footage. Through simple pinch gestures, you can see tiled images for particular days, weeks, months, and even years, and then zoom right back in at any point you like. Google Photos is also powerful for search, as you'd expect. You can search by people, places, things, and types, which are all automatically created. And you can drill down in each of those categories to see, for example, every picture you have of a particular person, all without ever tagging them. Sharing is also a breeze. You don't even need your contacts to have the Google Photos app. You can simply share a link that they can view in Chrome. If they are logged in, they can easily download an entire album in seconds. As you dive headlong into the world of Android and development, it's helpful to know the existing Android environment that is in the market. This section provides data about the relative number of devices running a given version of the Android platform. As you can see from the table, KitKat has the largest installed base at 39.2%, followed by the various versions of Jelly Bean at 37.4%. So there is a great opportunity to develop apps for the latest Android release and give the many users on older versions an upgrade to Marshmallow. This concludes What's New in Android M.